My name is Jackie. I'm a certified end of life doula. And today I'm going to talk about a few ways that grief can manifest in the body. I'm not a doctor. Okay. I'm not giving you any medical advice. These are simply some manifestations that I've witnessed as an end of life doula and as a yoga practitioner who works with people in their grief. Name them, and maybe you can relate, maybe not. Maybe if you want to share some of your own experiences in grief and ways that it manifested in your body, you could comment below, and that may, you know, that may help somebody else because one of the things we don't talk about beyond death and dying and living well is grieving. So, as an end of life doula, as a certified end of life doula, and somebody that's just beginning to be on this app, we do not share our experiences. I think grief and death and dying and all of that is just super taboo topic, but we're all going to die and our mortality is very real. So, yeah. So these are a few ways grief can manifest in your body that you might not know. And the first one I just named was being super, super tired, lethargy, like having no energy. Even when you have slept, you still do not feel rested. Uh, you can also go the opposite way where you can't sleep. So you're up all night. Changes in our eating habits. Some people get super ravenous and others have no appetite at all. It makes them sick to think about food. So I think it's important to acknowledge both because neither one is better than the other. They're both simply ways that our bodies respond physically to grief. And again, there's probably some that I won't name today. So please feel free to share in the comments. Follow me if you're interested in end of life work. If you're a caregiver, if you are seeking support, if you're somebody who has an interest in being open and talking about living well, death and dying and grief, just be here. You don't have to even say anything, but join me any way that you are comfortable. Some other ways that grief can show up in the body is also in our breath. Like our breath can get super short and super tight. And we don't even realize that it's because of the grief that we're experiencing. We may think it is tied to something completely different. Grief can show up in the way that we breathe, in the way that we hold our breath, in the way that we deeply breathe, in the way that we exhale. It can feel sticky. It can feel stuck. It can feel tight. It can feel super chest heavy. Again, I'm not a doctor. Okay. This is not medical advice. I'm a certified end of life doula. I'm also a yoga teacher. So I specifically work with people who are at the end of life and who are in their grief because this is my experience and the people that I've worked with. So please understand that everybody's individual here and we all are going to grieve differently and it's going to affect us in different ways. But broken heart syndrome is an actual term that's used, and people it mimics having a heart attack because the pain in the heart is actual pain in your heart. And people will go to the doctor thinking they're having a heart attack and they'll be like, there's nothing wrong with you. You have nothing wrong. And it could be as a result of grief. And that's a very real issue that can happen and that I have witnessed happen. It does happen. Some other ways grief can manifest in the body is fog, forgetfulness. If you are driving down the road and you forget where you're going, and again, this is just not medical advice, but this is part of grief and that I've witnessed and that I've experienced in myself, forgetting your keys, forgetting where you're going, just the fog every day, trying to go to work, trying to meet deadlines, trying to raise your kids, trying to care for yourself. Your brain is foggy and it's easy to forget and it's easy to feel clumsy. So all of those are ways grief can also manifest in the body. Our digestion definitely changes when we are in grief. And like I said earlier, it can result in, an overflow, or it can result in completely stagnant energy. So within the digestive system. And I think that's important to note too. Our nervous systems, it triggers the nervous system to that fight, flight, or freeze. And now we're in danger because everything we know right, of our life up until this point has involved this person. And now that they are no longer, we have now triggered a response within ourselves that is like danger, danger, abort mission, you know, and unfortunately when we're in grief we can't do that. We have to move with it. It has to become part of us, and we have to learn to move through the world with it. So recognizing that we do and will have a physical response to grief is super important. Your body is going to grieve just like your emotional, just like your mind, your spirit, your heart, all, because it's now in foreign territory. Yeah, those are just a few that I've named, and I'm sure you have some that you've experienced. The circadian rhythm that gets out of whack. I've noticed a lot of times people will, be up all night and sleep during the day, or vice versa. These physical manifestations of grief, they may not happen to every single person. They're going to look different for everybody. Uh, so I encourage you and I challenge you that if you're seeing this to share or really become self aware this week of how your grief is showing up for you physically. You can also, your immune system gets super weak, which is natural, right? You're going through this loss. So your immune system is going to weaken. We're more apt to get sick when we are experiencing deep grief because, it's stripping us down. We're losing a part of ourselves. And it weakens our immune system, and sometimes people become more privy to sickness during their times of grief too. And so I encourage you to explore yourself, like take an interior check of your body, notice how your body feels, be able to name maybe where your grief is showing up for you. I think that's super important. It shows up differently for everybody, and it's important to be able to notice and name where your grief is. Most of us are so disconnected from our bodies that we don't even think our bodies are grieving, but we will have a physical response to grief, obviously, because the physical presence of the person that we have lost is no longer physically here. Or pet. I don't want to discount pet loss either. I know it's different, but the loss of anything, anytime you have change, uh, you're gonna lose something, and there will be grief in that, and there's no shame in that. Even if it's a good thing, you're gonna grieve in a way. And headaches is another one people experience a lot, pain in joints. The most important information in all of this isn't even the like giving you physical symptoms or telling you what I've noticed or I've witnessed. It's more about allowing you the insight to begin to notice within yourself what happens when you grieve, because we all have our own way of grieving. And as an end of life doula, I see it a lot. People struggle with their grief. They try to shame themselves. They try to give themselves time limits. Like, I'm by this day, I'm going to be over my grief, and I'm going to be doing this. No, you can't do that. You can't shame yourself into not grieving. You have to move through it. And during that process, you will gain, insight to how you respond physically to grief, like how grief shows up in your body and what is happening to you when you're experiencing loss. um it's interesting, the things that we can learn about ourselves in our grief, because it's so hard. uh we feel lonely, right? Grief is personal because it's happening to you. You're the one who knows this loss, nobody else, right? We have this loss, and then we're just forced back into the world, and meanwhile, part of us is with that person that we've lost, that we love. And the other part of us is here on earth while our world has stopped moving. Everybody else is moving right along. So everything we've known prior to that loss, right? Everything we've known prior to that, everything about us we knew prior to that loss has now changed, has now shifted. We're in unknown territory. And our bodies are going to have a physical response to that loss. And I don't think we realize that, a lot of us. I think it took me a long time to realize that. as well. But our bodies do respond, and they do. I'm just asking you to get curious today as you move through the rest of your week. Get curious to what's going on inside your body. And if you're somebody who is caring for somebody, or you're experiencing loss, maybe your own loss, maybe your own illness, whatever the case, I want you to get curious about how you're moving within. Sometimes our bodies can feel like dungeons, or we can feel trapped. So I just want you to know that if you are somebody who hasn't really grieved ever, or if you are not familiar with what happens when you grieve or your response to grief, you will one day experience grief. And I encourage you to really be open to moving with it and moving through grief. It doesn't leave us. There's never a time where we're like, yep, we're going to be done grieving. Nope. It's with us all the time. It shape shifts. Please consider following